Students, this lecture is devoted to analysis of data and report writing. After you have collected your data from the field, the research is not completed yet, and you come back from the field and analyze the data. So, we will talk about analysis of data and then about report writing and some tips regarding preparing papers for journals and PowerPoint presentations. So, the focus of this lecture is on analyzing quantitative and qualitative data, role of computers in data analysis, content analysis, which is for qualitative research, then presentation of report and research, thesis writing, writing papers, PowerPoint presentation, and importance of consistency in writing. Analysis. Analysis in quantitative research is done in terms of descriptive statistics, graphs and charts, and these descriptive statistics are mean, mode, median, skewness, kurtosis, etc., etc. For details, you have to see some statistics book or refer to my lectures on statistics. Actually, there are so many steps in analysis of data. So, first you have to code your data, then enter in computer. These days SPSS is very popular. Some people use R, some people use other packages, even Excel sheet most of you are familiar with can provide you some analysis of univariate data and some bivariate data also. Then there are inferential statistics. For causal analysis of data, you use inferential statistics like T, F, Z, etc. In qualitative methodology, in grounded theory, you begin with coding, then axial coding, categories, memoing, and theory making. Or you can also go for narrative analysis, discourse analysis, depending on what methods you have used. Some people do manual coding and simply create stories on the basis of the qualitative data, present that story, and in support of the story present verbatim quotes from qualitative research. So, as qualitative methodology is not standardized, it does not refer to one kind of methodology or tools and techniques. So, in analysis of qualitative data also there are so many techniques. You also make graphs and charts which make communication with the readers or audience easier, and in quantitative methods as we have seen that the most common technique of research is survey. In survey you apply descriptive statistics, mean, mode, median and these things. Correlation tells us about the empirical relationship between two variables. Regression gives you the law of relationship. Correlation tells us about the strength of relationship and regression gives us the law of relationship. Then regression can be used with two or more independent variables and one dependent variable. Then there is multiple classification analysis depending on the nature of data. like if independent variables are categories and dependent variable consists of a numeric variable measured on interval scale, then you can use multiple classification analysis. Then there is multiple regression when dependent and independent variables are many. There is probit and logit models when the dependent variable is a qualitative variable and independent variables some of them are numeric and some are qualitative. Path analysis when the independent variables are intercorrelated. Factor analysis for reduction in the number of variables and also for scaling, and structural equation modeling, which helps you in testing a more complex conceptual model. This structural equation modeling is also called a technique of path analysis, and for this ordinary SPSS would not work. You have to use AMOS. In case of qualitative data, the conventional methods are develop a story, read your document, field notes, narratives, and develop a story on your own, justify that story. You can divide your story into parts and justify your story on the basis of verbatim quotes, or you interpret what people say, what your respondent said, paraphrase them, interpret them, contextualize them. And would you like to show that alternative interpretations were considered and rejected? This should apply to both quantitative and qualitative methods. In analysis, normally we say that this is the case, that X is correlated with Y, but in a sound research, you may also demonstrate that the explanation that you are providing is the only plausible explanation. Other alternatives or other explanations are rejected on the basis of your data. Now, role of computers in data analysis for bringing objectivity to analysis and for large data and for multivariate situation. Without computers in large scale data, multivariate data, you cannot do any analysis, and the packages are SPSS, SAS, Stata, MATLAB, AMOS. For qualitative analysis, again there are statistical packages. As I said earlier, some qualitative analysts or some ethnographers are opposed to using computer packages for analysis of qualitative data. They go according to old ethnographic conventions, but I think for bringing objectivity and for dealing with very large data, computer packages can be of immense help. Atlas, coding analysis toolkit, CAT, Elan, NVivo, etc., etc. You can search them for more computer packages on net. These qualitative packages not only help in the analysis of data, they also help in management of data and its formatting. One simple example of formatting, for writing references in the thesis, you require a specific format. Sometimes you have to change the format, because different journals and different books follow different conventions. If you have use computer packages for this, then it is very simple to convert your references from one format to another. So, for arranging them according to alphabetical order, for changing format and for various types of manipulations, or for putting them in a particular form like in API style or any other style, it is good to use statistical package and qualitative packages. In qualitative analysis, one of the most important things, or in qualitative analysis in general, one important thing is content analysis. I have explained this content analysis with the help of picture of brain. In content analysis, what is important is themes, concepts, themes. You have to generate themes. These themes may be observations, ideas, beliefs, relationships, and then relationships between those themes. Then a larger picture, story, and then you define your story, which requires theory, observations and explication. Now, analogy with computer model of brain would be like this, that themes are like these centers, nodes, relationships are like these relationships, networks, story is the larger picture, that this person is a scientist, and you have to defend your computer model of brain, and this you do on the basis of indirect experimental evidence. This is what research is. Now, types of presentations are several: written presentation, blackboard, transparencies or PowerPoint presentation, radio talk, oral presentation without any aid, popular lectures, and maybe some other varieties. Written presentation. The most important thing for PhD students is to write the PhD thesis, and you must be familiar with academic writing. You write MPhil thesis, PhD thesis, which differs from writing a poem, writing short stories or business writing. A PhD thesis must be clear and precise. You see, you are in PhD thesis you are dealing with complex ideas, and you are expected to show scholarship, that you are familiar with the literature, you are a creative person, you are able to identify a gap, you have collected relevant data to fill up that gap, and you have used appropriate statistical techniques or computer techniques or other manual techniques for analysis of data. You are dealing with complex ideas which need to be expressed with precision and clarity. Remember that one idea follows from another. Usually thesis is divided into chapters. The first chapter sort of introduces the problem, review of literature, objectives, hypothesis and conceptual model. Second chapter is about methodology. Third and fourth chapter may be about analysis. Sometime in sociological research, third chapter is devoted to socio-economic and demographic characteristics, and fourth and fifth to analysis, and then at last summary and conclusion. You begin with the theory, generate some hypotheses, test them on the basis of data, and in the last chapter come back to theory. Chapter length. some students ask how lengthy a thesis should be. There is no rule as such. Very good, we have seen very good PhD thesis running into only say 100 pages, and we have also seen PhD thesis written in several volumes. So, there is no hard and fast rule, but if you just want an answer to guide you, not the real answer, then a thesis may be written in 50,000 words. So, I am not saying pages, because pages will depend on whether you use single line spacing, 1.5 line or double line spacing. So, let us talk of words. A PhD thesis must contain about 50,000 words. Introduction is 1/10 of that, 5,000 words. Literature review 8,000 words. Methodology 7,000. Methodology is not less important. Sometimes students simply write that this type of sample design was used and data was collected from so many people. But methodology should also talk about difficulties in data collection, scaling, scaling first, difficulties field work later. How did you develop your scale? Some students have a tendency to borrow scales from studies done abroad, ask whether those scales are not culturally sensitive. Maybe a scale which works in US or a scale which works in Belgium or in Latin American countries may not work in India. So, you have to adapt that scale according to Indian cultural conditions. Then 3 chapters of analysis, each of them in 8,000 words, 8,000, 8,000, 8,000, and conclusion and recommendations 6,000 words. It is not necessary that you always make policy recommendations. A PhD thesis is a document of knowledge and it is written on a problem on which there has been a long debate in literature, or there is a problem which cannot be resolved by using existing paradigms. So, you reflect on that. But in sociology and sometime in psychology and political science also, you are expected to write policy recommendation. Your supervisor says that what are the policy recommendations, or your examiners will say what are the policy recommendations of this thesis, or what is the relevance of this thesis. Relevance means importance for policy making, social construction, interventions, NGOs, etc. So, you write policy recommendation, and this is in about 6,000 words. This I have taken from this book, Writing Your Thesis, which was published in 2006. I thought that this gives you some guideline. There can be better ways of telling about this, and I say as such there is no rule. You need not have 3 chapters of analysis, you may have only 2 chapters and sometimes only 1 chapter of analysis. Yes, introduction one, literature review another. Sometimes students combine literature and methodology. So, we have to be flexible. I tell PhD students that there is only one rule, that apply your mind and give justification for what you are doing. Use of headings, subheadings and titles, use of bullets, tables, figures, hyphen. We get reports from foreign examiners, most of which talk about deficiencies in writing English. English is not our mother tongue, true, we are not native speakers of English, but if we are writing thesis in English, we must be careful about all these things. How to write headings, subheading, how to divide thesis into chapters, chapters into sections, sections into subsections, where to use bullets, where to use numbers, how to make tables and figures and hyphen, dashes, numerals, apostrophe, and then references and bibliography must be given in a particular manner. Students often ask whether thesis be written in first person or third person. Actually, there is no rule again as such, but those who use the positivistic approach and pretend to be working like a scientist, they may use the third person approach, and qualitative researchers, ethnographers use first person. These days first person has become more common than third person. Then use gender neutral language, like in place of saying he or she again and again, say they, write in plural. For research, for researcher, write researchers, so that you write they and he and she can be avoided. Then layout for quotations, quotations within quotations, how you will give quotations within quotations, system of referencing, choose one standard, Harvard or APA style, then be careful and follow a fixed format for notes and footnotes. How will you write non-English terms? Sometime in ethnographic work you want to give some emic concepts and you want to write them in native language, Biru, Disari. So, write them in italics and give the English meaning in bracket. Then terms which are commonly used in English, ceteris paribus, etc. You also choose between, it is better to write in British English, but you can also follow the rules of Indian English or American English, but follow them consistently. Remember that research justifies a knowledge claim. Relying solely upon a noted authority is not a satisfactory justification. Findings need to be derived from research data, and you have a theory, but not the final claim. So, in place of saying that something is like this, or that X is a cause or X affects Y, why do not you say that X seemed to affect Y, and use the theoretical vocabulary wherever necessary. Reflect on ontology or fundamental nature of the word. Quantitative researchers use the realist ontology, that yes, word is independent of human existence and we are trying to know that through scientific epistemology. Or if you are a qualitative researcher, then reality is constructed, it does not exist anywhere, and you follow constructionist approach or go for subjective meanings or meanings of participants or community. Think of your methodology carefully, reflect on that. Toward the end of the thesis, again you reflect on methodology. If you do this research again, how would you do it? And how your research is inseparable, how your findings, your inferences are inseparable from the theory. Research is an empirical attempt to test or falsify a prevailing theory. We expect that at the PhD level you will do an empirical research based on primary data. In some universities like Jawaharlal Nehru University, MPhil thesis is written on the basis of secondary data like National Sample Survey or census, and for PhD students are supposed to collect their own primary data on the same theme, and the two can be combined in the form of a PhD thesis. The report must present background of the work, sources of hypothesis, methodology, findings, and then discussion, and accept that complete objectivity is impossible even when you follow positivistic tradition. After finishing the research, you write papers. These days papers are taken more seriously than PhD thesis. Your research, your PhD research at least is not completed till you have written or till you have published some papers, because you wish to disseminate your findings. This is done through journal articles, articles in edited books, articles in newspapers, magazines, and oral and poster presentation in conferences and workshops. Journals are categorized into A plus, A, B, C, and you are expected to contribute at least 2 papers in A category journal. If you have not done that, your research is not considered to be of good quality, and getting a faculty position in a reputed institution would be difficult for you. Select the journal carefully. There is not one A category journal, there are so many. Identify the right kind of journal. Your publication depends heavily on your choice of journal. Look at the impact factor, rejection rate, focus of the journal, on which issues and what kind of methodologies are preferred by a particular journal, whether a journal is devoted to mathematical sociology or theoretical sociology, whether it prefers quantitative methodologies or qualitative methodologies, logistic regression, probit, logic models or factor analysis, etc., etc. So, choose your journal carefully. You wish to make your presentation also effective. The question is how. Presentation means presentation in conferences, workshops, and now in publications, publications expect the following things: title, abstract, introduction, literature, methods, results, discussion, conclusion, references, and if you want to give some extra analysis or some other relevant material, or maybe sometimes some visual data, that can be given in appendix. The organization of oral presentation is also similar, except that references and appendices are not required. Before oral presentation, try to find out how much time is allotted for your presentation. Prepare accordingly. Is it 1 hour presentation, 30 minutes presentation? In some universities, students are expected to present their thesis in 30 minutes, in some universities 45 minutes, in some universities it is not decided, it is up to the researcher, and the researcher can go up to 1 hour. Nature of the audience, see what is the nature of the audience. Are you giving a general lecture in diverse and general kind of audience, or among experts only? When you are presenting your thesis before your examiners, you must keep in mind that they have already written they have already written their reports on your thesis. That means they have read your thesis fully. So, avoid the unnecessary details, just tell about the methodology and your own findings, and especially those findings which are new and you want to emphasize. And whether the modern facilities of communication like PowerPoint presentation, earlier we used transparency, nowadays we do not use transparencies, we go for PowerPoint presentation, and be also ready for technical failure, which is common in India. So, in case power goes, or there is some other technical problem with computer communication something, you should be able to make the oral presentation. So, even when you are making PowerPoint presentation of your thesis, be ready for oral presentation in case something happens. Now, some general issues about oral presentation. Oral communication is different from written communication. The listeners have no chance to reread the paper. That means, in oral presentation you must use simpler language. You must explain all major concepts in a simple clear language, and that means you think about your audience, that they are experts in your field or they are laymen or mixed. The impact of your presentation will depend on this factor. If you are making an expert presentation in a narrow area, in general or common kind of audience or among laymen, it will not be appreciated. And if you give a public lecture kind of lecture before the experts, they will also not appreciate that. Think about your rhetorical goals, clarity and generating interest in your works. Practice in public, through mock presentation among your friends, prepare yourself, and also use practices which are in public, which are the norms or which are in fashion. Presentations in 2018 are lot different from presentations experts made 50 years ago or 80 years ago. Speak comfortably and clearly and prepare for that. Now, these presentations are done with the help of Blackboard and other things. It is not always PowerPoint. So, in case of Blackboard, face the listeners, basically you are communicating with them. You are not communicating with the Blackboard, you are communicating with the audience. Write all major points so that the listeners can take notes. Write clearly and in size that even those at the back can read. The size of the letters should be such that those at the back can also read. So, it matters what is the size of the room and what is the size of the audience. Give time to react. After completing one set of instructions completely, clear the board so that other instructions can be written, and avoid extreme positions for writing. If you write only in this part or only in this part or this part or this part or here and keep the rest of the Blackboard empty, that is not a good use of Blackboard. There are actually so many theories of Blackboard, and internet search will give you lot of information regarding how to use Blackboard. There have been good lectures on this issue. You can search on YouTube also if some lectures are found. Now, regarding PowerPoint presentation, I have two slides. One, do you want to make a bad PowerPoint presentation, and another, do you want to make a good PowerPoint presentation? If you want to make a bad PowerPoint presentation, which actually by implication shows what is good, like you shall not be neat. That means, for good presentation you should be neat, like that. Thou shall not waste space, which means that if you make maximum use of the space on a slide, the density would be so high that your audience would be confused. Optimum use, always use the optimum theory, optimum, neither too much nor too less. Thou shalt not covet brevity, thou shalt cover thy naked, thou shalt not write large. Sometimes writing large would be more desirable. Thou shalt not use color. For a good presentation, you use color. Colorful presentation will be more effective than simply gray. Thou shalt not illustrate. Give lots of examples. For good presentation, give lots of examples. Thou shalt not make eye contact. Even when you are using PowerPoint presentation, you are basically communicating with the audience. So, make eye contact with them and use PowerPoint presentation, PowerPoint, use slides only as aids. Thou shalt not skip slides in a long talk. If it is a long talk, you may skip some slides for good use of time and for focusing on the important points. You can skip some slides also. Thou shalt not practice. No, practice is very important. For good presentation, content is the most important part of your presentation, of course. Use design templates, standardize position, color, styles, include only necessary information, not too much. Then the density of, sometimes I have seen that some people simply copy the entire page of the thesis or research paper and project it. No, that is bad. Write in bullets, in numbers, in lines and not too much. Content should be self evident. Use colors that contrast, be consistent with effects, transitions and animation. Too many slides can lose your audience. So, there should be limited number of slides. There are some general rules, generally no more than 6 words a line. You may not always stick to this rule, but it is good. Generally no more than 6 lines a slide. Avoid long sentences, larger font indicates more important information. Font size generally ranges from 18 to 48. If it is less than 18, it will not be clearly visible, and more than 48 would not be required and would be too stressing the eyes. So, and not much can be written on the slide if you use 48. Be sure text contrasts with background. Fancy fonts can be hard to read. Words in all capital letters are hard to read. Avoid abbreviations and acronyms. Limit punctuation marks. In PowerPoint presentation, punctuation marks are not so much needed. Clip art and graphics should balance the slide, should enhance and complement the overhead, no more than 2 graphics per slide, to show how bad it would be if you use more than 2 graphics. Here I have used 5 pictures, rather 6 this, okay, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 pictures of this rabbit along with its infant, and it looks bad. If first of all showing rabbit on this slide does not seem to be serving any purpose, and second, if this rabbit with its infant has to be shown for communicating something, 1 is enough. This 5 is too much and it is taxing to eyes of the audience, and this should be avoided. 10 important points about making PPTs. The joy of 6, that 6 bullets or 6 lines, and in each line only 6 words. So, I have taken material from separate places and I am repeating certain things so that they become more clear. Joy of 6. Use a maximum of 6 points per slide and 6 words per point. Use text sparingly. Depending on the color and font size you select, text may be difficult to read. In addition, if your audience is concentrating on written text, they are most likely not giving you their complete attention. So, the attention of the audience should be towards your side, not towards PPT. Simply reading PPT is not a good habit. Use PPT to make a presentation. You are the presenter and PPT simply helps you. So, explain the points, give 6 lines and 6 words in each and explain them. Give your own examples. So that the attention of the audience is towards you and not towards the presentation. Select colors with care. It is not always necessary that you use color, but colors will make your presentation more impactful, more effective. Experiment with color combinations, but make sure they work well on a screen. There is often a difference between how something looks on your computer screen and how it appears when projected onto a screen or wall. If possible, preview your presentation ahead of time. I have seen sometime that when I made slides, my presentations looked very attractive on my computer, but for some reason lighting etc., size of the room, lecture room and machine use, it was not so visible, my presentation was not so visible in the lecture hall. So, it makes a bad presentation. It is better to try to preview your presentation ahead of time, at least a part of that, if not the whole, at least a part of that. At least check 2-3 slides about whose colors etc., font size, you are not sure. Keep unity of design from slide to slide. Using one or several of the master slides provided in PowerPoint can help avoid problems of this nature. Font size is important. Use the floor test for readability. Print out a slide containing text, then place the page on the floor. Can you read the slide from a standing position? This is one ad hoc rule which works. If yes, then your audience can likely read it from their seats. If no, then the font size needs to be increased. Previewing your presentation in the room you will be using. Walk to the back of the room. If you cannot easily read the slides, your audience will not be able to read them either. Minimize or avoid animated text, sounds and fancy transitions. They may look impressive or you show familiarity with latest techniques of presentation, design, animations, but latest techniques of design and animations will not always be more effective. The focus should be on effect. So, you try out different things and then choose which fonts, which text, which sounds, which animations will be good for you. I have found that animations are not always effective. I find that less dense slides which are interpreted by you, which do not contain interpretation on slide itself, but which are interpreted by you by giving examples, illustrations, making logical connections, relating one slide to another, your interpretations, literary interpretation, your own creative subjective interpretations, that presentation is better. Sometime I have seen that the really big people use only 2, 3, 4 slides and write very few words and spend one hour, 2 hours on their presentation, and that is very effective. Then avoid switching between programs such as calling up a web page. Hyperlinks are good, but normally I would say that extra details can be hyperlinked, and after your lecture is over, if somebody asks for that extra material, then you can go to hyperlinks, otherwise not. This takes extra time and can make it difficult for your audience to remain focused on your presentation. Do you want people to take notes during your presentation? Leave them sufficient time to do so. Timing. Use 3 slides per minute as a maximum. There is again no such rule, but what it means is that you should not be too fast. Generally, when students bring their PowerPoint presentation to me on the basis of their PhD thesis, they have a tendency to make 70-80 slides. I tell them that if it is a 30-minute presentation, 15 maximum 20 slides is more than enough. Or if it is 1 hour presentation, maybe 30-35 slides, so that you have sufficient time to explain them. I am giving say 1 hour lecture, so there should be 20 slides, but I think in this presentation there are 38 or so slides, but 2 slides are such title and then at the end thank you, they are useless. So, out of 38 it is basically 36 for 1 hour presentation. It would have been still better if I had only 20 slides and explained them, but I thought that maybe I compromise communication with giving more content. Then visual images can be great. Also I am repeating many things. Visual images can be great, this is visual image, but they need to be selected carefully, not haphazardly, not randomly. They must convey what is written on that slide and be appropriate to the points you want to make on that slide. Vast size, 2 images, too small are not helpful. Earlier also with the example of rabbits, I showed that 5 rabbits on a slide is not a good visual image. It should have been 1 only. Unless the slide contains points which talk about a couple of them or 3 or 4 of them specifically, then ठीक, then okay. For showing 3 things, 3 images can be given. Formatting visual images to fit a slide, be sure to keep the dimensions of the original. Yeah, dimensions of the original. If I change its height or if I change its breadth, not the height, only one thing, I expand this only in one direction, then the picture will become hazy and the audience is not likely to appreciate that. Then some other issues, what sort of room you are presenting in, your audience, should you have all singing, should you have all singing, all dancing, slide shows with spinning slide entry and sound effects, how much information should you give at any one time, should you present all the bullet points at the same time or one at a time or by using animation. People have different learning styles that process information received differently. These sorts of things might have to be considered in using visual presentations. If you are making posters, preferably printed posters of appropriate size. Use colors will make them more attractive. Include all major points, rationale of the study, objectives, methodology, findings, conclusion, anything which is written in a research paper. All those things are written in posters also. Sometimes your paper is accepted not for oral presentation, but poster presentation. So, be ready to or be familiar with the styles of poster presentation. Poster must be self sufficient and therefore, all these things in short, in paragraphs, in images at appropriate places should be printed on the poster. Titles, subtitles in appropriate fonts and colors, graphs and charts will make it more attractive. Make the major points in a self evident manner and explain when you are asked to explain. So, you are standing before your presentation and people will come, if they find your poster attractive, they will ask questions and you answer them. The characteristics of a well written document: clarity, structure, format, intellectual coherence, accuracy in grammar and punctuation. Inaccuracies of grammar and punctuation will leave a bad impression. Sometimes they are unavoidable, and I have seen even with great experts and very senior people, and even after making so many presentations at so many places with similar slides, they make errors, but these errors leave a bad impression. Then consistency in referencing, presentation and use of terms. At the end, reflexive account, an attempt by the researcher to reflect upon their own intellectual background and perspective. It is desired that at the end express limitations of your thesis, because now you understand it better. If you do this research again, how will you do it? So, what is your understanding of the limitations of your present thesis, and if you do it again, how will you take care of those limitations? Leave some problems for future research. These two things are very, very important in writing research papers, PhD thesis, MPhil thesis: limitations and future research, problems for future research. And if you ask me what is the most important rule for writing a thesis, it is consistency, consistency and above all consistency. Consistency not only between what you have written on 3rd page and 165th page, but also consistency of your research questions, hypothesis, conceptual framework, statistical techniques, inferences and conclusion. Like if in the conceptual framework you show that there is a dependent variable and there are a number of independent variables, all of them are affecting the dependent variable directly and there are no interconnections between independent variables, then you can use multiple regression. But if you show relationships between independent variables, then path analysis would be a better technique. So, there should be, and the order in which you ask questions in the first chapter and the order in which you present findings or the order in which you discuss things in the last chapter should also be consistent. It should not happen that you have answered the last question first and first question last. Radio talks and public lectures, basic ideas are similar. Sometime as an academician you get invited to radio or TV, you may be one or you may be several. Understand the needs and diversity of audience. Remember that you are an analyst and you are not a politician or a preacher. You make a statement, you have a thesis, you have a statement to make and you also have the justification for making that statement, and that statement is of basically academic nature. It may have policy implications that you can talk about later, but that statement is of academic nature. Solve their issues in convincing manner, justification. Remember that you have limited time and you have the ability to express yourself in limited time. Decide on what you want to say and what your justifications are. So, for scholars, for PhD students, MPhil students, for experts, the most important things are what you want to say and what is your justification. Thank you. So, this is what I wanted to say in this presentation, analysis of data. Although analysis of data and presentations are two separate topics, but in this 10 lecture presentation on research methods, I thought that I can be short on analysis, because there are other lectures on statistics I have given under the same scheme, and I talk more about the presentation part. And in presentation part, consistency, if you are using PowerPoint presentation, fonts, a limited number of bullets. So, the density of your slide should not be too low, density of your slide should not be too high either, and making use of animation, graphics, design, advanced techniques of them. Remember that advanced techniques of design, animations, colors will not necessarily make you more effective. You will be more effective when you are using your PowerPoint presentation only as a guide, an aid, you know, some basic points which you elaborate on your own with examples, illustrations, connections, theories, anecdotes, case studies, and when the attention of the audience is towards you and not towards the slides, that is a good presentation. Thank you.